Welcome to the Real Estate Finder podcast. I'm Matthew Maschler, real estate broker with the signature real estate companies here in the great state of Florida. And with me, the co-host of the Real Estate Finder podcast, Staci Garcia. Hi, Staci.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, we haven't been here in a while.
I know.
Last time I saw you, you were standing with the mic.
Yep. I did a one and done kind of deal. I did 2 shows in one night at the Sadman Comedy Club.
Stand-up comedy.
I did.
You're done. You're not doing it again?
You know, I want to do it in my heart because I think that I would just do it, but there's such a chemistry or a formula behind it. And so you have to really write. This is the problem with it. I have a horrible memory, right? I write everything down. I don't even talk to people anymore because I would like it texted so I can read it back again later or email. And so when you're doing stand-up comedy, you don't think much about it. Everything is written and memorized and then performed. So it's like acting in a way, more acting than it is improv. I'm more of an improv where I can have fun and make jokes and do all that stuff without thinking. And as soon as I have to remember something, the anxiety of, am I going to remember it, comes in. And then I start to stress out. I'm
100% the same way. I could do an outline or something, but I don't know that I could do a bit or a routine.
The funny thing is that the comedian that Mike Pensaca is his name. He's really great.
He's the coach, the teacher?
He says, well, have you ever gone to see Jim Gaffigan or Sebastian Maniscalco? And they always do the same routine. Isn't that what you want to see? I'm like, of course. He goes, you go to a concert and you want them to play the list of songs that you love. I'm like, of course. He goes, so they memorize them and then they do them in that order and then that's why you love it. And that's what people come to see. And I said, I know it. I don't know if I'm going to feel like talking about that stuff when I get up on the mic.
And while he's 100% correct.
Yeah.
If I saw Jim Gaffigan and then I went back and saw Jim Gaffigan and he did the exact same show or he did a show I saw on TV already, I'd be like, no, I want new jokes.
Right.
So
they sprinkle new jokes in and see if they're working. They test them out. But one of the things that I felt that was the most difficult thing was, and I didn't get it in the beginning, and Sam was trying to, she had already taken the class, so she was kind of coaching me a little bit as well. She said, like, she's been taking the class so long and she had 3 lines. And I was like, I have 3 hours. How do you have 3 lines in all this time?
Now, the opposite is, right, Johnny Carson, and I'm aging myself, Jay Leno, right? All right, I'm aging myself. But on any of these shows,
they just talk.
They do an opening monologue. No, they rehearse it.
Yeah.
They know their jokes in advance, but they're one and done. They're not doing a routine, the same routine. They're not traveling with that routine, right? Johnny Carson or Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, they're going to come out and they're going to do their monologue based on today's jokes and today's headlines, and then they move on.
Right.
That's the genius of David Letterman's top 10 list.
Yes.
Because David Letterman, when I used to watch him, he was just, you could tell he was just phoning it in, right? You know, the writers came up with this top 10 list. He had to go, and he just had to read it.
I'm all about the top 10 list.
Yeah.
That's the thing is I used to put on Facebook the top 10 news items according to me. That was my thing. And I would just write top 10 things that were on my mind or whatever, top 10 parenting tips. And they were all ridiculously funny.
Right.
I can do that all day long, but remembering them to bring them to the stage to do them over and over again, not for me.
Yeah. So I agree with him if you're trying to get to, and if his job is to be the comedy coach to get you to be the level of Jim Gaffigan or Sebastian Maniscalco, okay, he's doing his job.
Absolutely.
Right? But if your goal is minor league, right, and you just want to once in a while get up on the stage and be confident and tell jokes, because you're funny and observational, then
when I first got up on the first day, he says, well, let's get everybody comfortable on the microphone and up on the stage. And I was like, okay. I always pictured in my head my first time going to do stand-up comedy, right? And the first thing, and you're going to laugh, and a long time ago, I got the website, the Twitter, the Facebook, you know how you get all the social, original Joy Vey.
Joy Vey.
I was going to be Joy Vey. And so I have all of those things, right? I'm like, I'm going to be the Jewish complainer, the Rosanna Dana, but a Boca, you know, but funny and young and mom and whatever, and cursing. And at the same time incorporate the fact that I can't stand up for very long because my back hurts or my legs hurt or whatever. So I'm going to sit down, or I might need to lay down. So that was my impression as what I was going to create. And then
this character?
Yeah, and he says, you have to be yourself, number one. Everything that I thought I was going to do, he said, no, you can't sit down for stand-up comedy. I'm like, I might need to sit, though. And he's like, there's a stool there, but it's not for sitting. I said, but I will want to sit because I won't. He goes, you won't even know your back hurts because your brain is going to be thinking about what to say. And I was like, well, I don't know. My brain always tells me I want to sit, And then, so we're having this conversation, and it was kind of like a bit. Sam's in the back laughing, and she's like, you're so funny. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be. This is how I thought stand-up was always going to be for me. I was going to sit down, and I was going to maybe lay down, and then I was going to, it gets hot in there, you saw. I've been there as a audience member.
Sadman Comedy Club in Boca Raton. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And it's, they have air conditioning and everything, and it's just a smaller room. So, and it's cozy, so it's nice. But I thought I'll bring in a bunch of fans, and I'll have them all lined up. So I'm going to say that I came with my own fans. I stock the place with my fans, and they travel everywhere I go. And I'm with my double entendre. And then I said, so I'm going to bring my own fans. He's like, you can't bring your own fans. I'm like, I do actually bring my own fans wherever I go. I have a neck fan. I have a couple plug-in fans. They're cordless. I bring them. I charge them at night. I get hot a lot. I don't want to be hot. If I get hot, I'm in a bad mood. So it's kind of like I had all these things that I wanted to do, and he shot them down right in the beginning and said, why don't you start at Stand Up 101? Be yourself and just say things that you think are funny, and we'll cut them down to lines, and then we'll keep them really tight.
That's a good idea.
And that's stand-up.
When you were doing that, I had like 3 ideas of like things I should like research and turn into bits. I don't remember them.
Well, that's
so mad I didn't write them down.
That's how and then he goes, do you have any notes? And from week to week, you're supposed to write all these things down and remember them. I'm like, well, I'm kind of a procrastinator, so I do things last minute. Sometimes I'm better on the spot, clearly. And so I didn't write them down. He's like, Staci, you're not getting the grasp of this class. Class is meant to find what's funny that you already think, and then get it down to these lines really tight, and then say them to the audience, with tone and timing. And I was like, okay. And every time I stood up, I would say something different. And he's like, this isn't what you said last week. And I'm like, yeah, I changed my mind. You know what I mean? Like something new came to me. It was funnier, and I decided to change the whole thing. So he's like, you really can't change your material. You haven't started yet. Like you don't have a following to change your material. And then there's another student in the class who has been doing this for, I'm sure, at least a year. And his name is Tal. And he was really good too. And he was trying out new material. But you saw he put his notes on the stool, and he started looking back at his notes to see what he could use because he wanted to try new material. But he is like time and tested already. I just thought I would just go in there, say funny stuff, and then it would be funny, and that would be the end of it. Kind of like the way I am in real life.
Sure. Like stand up. Like you just get up from the audience, stand up, and start making jokes.
Yeah, he goes, that's what it appears to be to others, but it's really not. It's actually memorized, written, honed, tested, and then performed, and then you take out what doesn't work, and you want it really tight. And in between the 2 shows, the first show I did was better. In between the 2 shows, he said to me, you went 7 minutes, and I needed to cut it down to 3. I'm like, cut what down? I don't even know what I said. And he goes, all the stuff that wasn't funny. I'm like, there was stuff that wasn't funny that I said? Then I was like, I need a beverage. You know what I mean? So after I watched it afterwards, I realized what he meant by the stuff in between that you don't need to say. Because I did say a lot of stuff to set up the story. But he's like, you don't need to set the story most of the time. You just say it. That part I get. And then I thought about it a lot after I did it. I'm a much better writer, because you can set the story on when you're writing it. I would write great for any comedian that could take out the extra. And so my goal in life was to be a comedy writer at some point. I think I could be a comedy writer for another. I could perform it as well. I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to memorize it. Definitely. I guess if you do it over and over and over again, but also I don't like to do things more than once. And if I write something and it gets deleted, I never want to do it again. When we have an offer come in and it gets accepted and then it falls through and then I have to
sell the same house again.
It's super frustrating because I feel like I sold it already.
Right. You always say, I sold this house twice. I sold
exactly.
this house 3 times.
Yeah. It's very hard because my brain gets very attached to it.
And yet if you sold the house and then the buyers came to you a year later to sell it again, then you'd be very happy.
My buyers just came in. That's what I'm doing now. I sold a house in 2021 and actually bought, sold, and now bought.
Right.
I represent the buyers. Now they're selling again. So
And that selling again means something totally different.
Now they're selling. Now the same property. I'm on the third transaction. The fourth.
I think the most times I've sold a house was in Stone Creek Ranch, where I had sold a lot.
Right.
The buyers changed their mind, so they listed it with me, and I sold it again. And then those buyers changed their mind and listed with me, and I sold it again.
Yeah. Well, in this case, the funny thing is,
so I think that's 5 sides.
I had the buy right when it was in the when it was in the 200s. I had the sell when it was 352.5. Then I had and I represented the buyers. So on the 352.5, these were the buyers. Now the buyers are selling, so they were my sellers. If I could get the buyers again, it would be like the 6th transaction on the same property. But it's fun to watch though, because it's hard to tell people that you can sell the place for double what you bought it for. The people that are living there are really nice, and they keep coming up to the seller saying, "There's no possible way you can sell this place for $427." I don't even know why you bought it for $352.5. But it's actually valued at that already. On Papa, which means their taxes are based on a $352.5 evaluation, which means it's worth that. And actually what it means down here is it's worth way more than that, because usually it's way under online. So when I have people come in, and they are neighbors, and all neighbors always come in for I had an open house Saturday and Sunday. The first thing they want to tell you is, this place is never going to sell for $427. And I said, well, do you want it to not sell?
Right.
And they're like, no, we want it to sell for, but we just don't think it will. I'm like, is it because you bought your place for $90?
Right.
7 years ago, or 17 years ago, or 27 years ago?
Right.
And they're like, oh no, I bought it for $45.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. They bought it for $45,000 in the
1970s.
1990s, or the 1970s, or at least when the market crashed, right?
Right. Yeah.
The 2010.
There's a lot of neighbors that want to tell me, how there are neighbors want to tell you about their place more than they want to tell you about what they're looking at. So a lot of people tell me, there's no way you're going to get this amount. I'm like, well, you should just be happy if I do. Last time you said that, in 2021, a lot of people told me you're not going to get the price, because I was the seller also.
Look, there was a community in Boca West where all the units were selling for $150,000, $200,000, but the buyers were putting in $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 into the renovation.
Right.
So it was a community of $1 million plus homes that would comp or appraise at $150,000 to $175,000. Right. So the first person to, and I had this issue 15 years ago, with someone wanting to, not understanding that these were $1 million homes being sold for $150,000. They just thought it was a community of $150,000 homes,
right? And
they thought the people that lived there were poor,
right?
Like, no, these are very successful people. These are $1 million homes,
right?
But the comps and the appraisals. So we just closed something yesterday in Baywood.
That's awesome.
In Boca West, which Baywood's funny because back in the 90s, my father had a place there.
I was going to comment on your Facebook post. Back in the 80s, my mom's aunt, B and Ray, they had a place in Baywood as well.
Yeah. So the comps are at $1 million, $1.2 million for renovated units. Yeah. And this was an unrenovated unit. So, we're thinking it's worth $650,000, $700,000 because it needs $500,000 worth of work to make it 1-1.
Right.
But the client kind of insisted that they wanted the 1-1. And it's fine with me. You set the price. I'm just your salesman. And we did. We listed it at $1.2 million. And what I said happened 10, 15 years ago where the people couldn't get financing, right? Because the $1 million home wouldn't appraise. Now we're on the opposite end of that spectrum.
Right.
When all of the houses are now renovated and are selling. So the buyer sees the comps, sees the appraisal, sees everything in this community is going for
higher,
$950,000, $100,000, $1.1 million, and they paid $150,000, and the house, the house needs everything. It needs all new flooring, all new bathrooms. The kitchen cabinets they're powder basically.
Right.
I mean, it's an old decrepit. It's a beautiful house, but inside's just old and decrepit. They have to change everything. It needs a total gut renovation. But the comps and the appraisals show this higher number, and they paid it.
The house that I'm reselling now, they had 2 appraisals done. And not for a buyer, for the relocation company. So there's a relocation company involved. And the relocation company hires and they pay for 2 appraisals. What happens with appraisers for me is I run 10 comps that I think are pretty good. You know? I'll even put a bad one in there, but make it obviously why it's bad.
Sure.
The lowest. And I prepare the comps. And so when I gave them to the seller and I said, here, when your appraiser gets there, politely hand them the comps or email them. Either way, they have them. And because you're kind of doing their job for them, or they get really offended, or they're really thankful. So you never really know how they're going to be. If they have a full agenda and tons of work, they appreciate it. If they are bored, and they have no job, other things to go to, then they say, I'll do my work on my own. I don't need your help, that kind of thing. So the first one came in and was super nice, really appreciated the comps being given to him, and said he checked before he got there. It was really hard property to comp. I've already bought and sold this and bought again with my seller. So I know it's a hard property to comp. That's why I gave them the comps. And the second appraiser came in and was offended that we gave him the comps. He said, I don't plan on using any of these. He quickly glanced at them and then told the seller, I'm only going to use the properties in the neighborhood. Well, the thing about that is there are no properties in the neighborhood that have ever sold, except the one that you're standing in, which I sold in 2021. And it was bought in 2021 by, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're standing in the one you can comp it with. And so obviously he didn't already look, and he was just like, I don't want any of these. I'm only going to comp it with where we're at. And then she said to him, well, just so you know, when you go to comp it, my unit was the only unit that has been sold. You're only going to comp it with mine.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was kind of let's test the guy and see if he's going to be a dick or not, in a nice way. But so that was a little glitch. But yeah, it does take a lot of patience. I mean, I love doing open houses, and I try to be friendly and super not in people's faces. But one of my pet peeves is when people use the bathroom. So now I tape the toilet shut so nobody can go. And they always say, is there a problem with the water? I'm like, no, but the people live here and they don't really want others going to the bathroom in their home, and I blame the owner. And then the other thing is when people walk in and they leave the doors open and it gets super hot. And then you turn around and you're like, do you leave the doors open in your own house when you walk in? Do you just walk in and leave a door wide open behind you? It's 900 degrees outside. So I can't even understand it, but when I went upstairs to turn out all the lights after the people left yesterday, because I had a second showing, they left all the sliding glass doors open upstairs. They have a patio, a balcony. It was like 900 degrees inside the house upstairs, and I'm wondering, oh my God, did the air conditioner break? They left the door wide open, and I think, I want to sell the house to them. They came for a second showing, and I want to like them, and they're not my buyers, but I want them to be the buyers. But what kind of person doesn't close the door behind them when they walk in the house? Plus, the people that live there have children. So, of course, you're going to, close and lock all the doors that are on the second level at least. But, yeah, twice I had to close the doors behind people like I'm some, door person.
That's crazy.
Frustrating. But, and I also, this was a house that during COVID, I had people wear booties on their feet to keep the floors clean and keep everything germ-free and so forth, and to keep order and to make people appear, know that we take care of the property, so we want you to cover your shoes or to come in without shoes on. And there were people that came to the door and said, well, I'm not coming in there if I have to take off my shoes. And I was like, okay, then you can't come in. Okay,
Goodbye.
bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And so now I ask people to do the same thing. I still feel the same. It's been 3 years since I sold it last time. It still looks nice in there. It's not exactly the same, but I still ask people to put booties on their shoes or to take their shoes off when they come in. And they look at me like, did it just did something happen? Did they just redo it? I was like, no, it was redone in 2021, but it looks exactly like it did when I sold it last time. So if you come in and trash it, I'm not going to hire someone to come in and pay and clean. These people live here, so they take care of it. And then people that say, oh, okay, well, we know you take care of it, so we know if we offer money and we're going to buy it, at least they took care of it. It gives them that sense of, well, at least they didn't trash it. So, but it's a quiet weekend, and I don't know what's going on. It wasn't as packed as I expected it to be.
Well, I was thinking about taking the real estate class, but I'm with you. I want to do more improv.
Yeah.
And I just want to
the comedy class.
Yeah, comedy class. And I just want to bitch about HOAs and real estate customers and the other agent.
Yeah.
But the problem is I don't know that the general public would find it funny.
It's true. We could have a real estate night for real, you know.
Yeah, we'd have to do an industry night.
Seriously. I know that you can't invite any comedians because they have this idea in their head that it has to be this certain way.
Right.
And you don't really think of what goes on behind the curtain. What's the formula?
Well, like, for instance, if it was karaoke night, and we came in and we sang karaoke, and you got some guy coming in and telling you, like, well, no, that's not the proper tone. You have to sing from the diaphragm. When you see Celine Dion on TV, she doesn't do that.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not trying to be Celine Dion. I'm just trying to
you
goof
can't
off.
turn your back to the audience.
I'm just trying to blow off steam.
I can only sing when I turn around and face the wall, And that was another thing I said. I said to Mike, I'm like, I might want to turn around and not talk to the audience. I might want to lay down on the ground and do my stand-up from the floor. I might actually bring in a lawn chair, open it up like you would get at Walmart, and lay on the lawn chair and do the stand-up to the ceiling. And he's like, you can't do that. And I was like, why? That's my point, is I want to be like that. So I said, it's not really stand-up. My whole dream of doing stand-up comedy is I want to lay in a bed with a mirror on the ceiling that's aiming at me, but also out to the audience. So I'm talking to myself, looking up at the ceiling, and the audience can see me in bed. You know what I mean? And it could be on stage, it could be on TVs on the side. It would be like I was standing, but I was actually laying on my back.
Do you have a recording of your stand-up? We should drop it on Matthew Mania podcast.
I do. I don't know if it's rated for all.
Right.
It's not general audience. Yeah, and that was the other thing, is doing stand-up for people that you know is way different than I think it would be to do stand-up for people that are strangers.
Right.
So in the beginning, I wanted to invite everyone I know because this was going to be the one thing that I did. It was a bucket list life item. But when you're standing there and you're about to say all this crazy shit, and you look in the audience and, there are people that you work with and people that you're friends with.
That's hard. That's much, much harder.
And they don't know this side of you. So they're like, whoa.
No, that's
yeah. And so in my head, I thought, I'm not going to think anything. Because if you followed me on Facebook for quite some time, or even if you know me from social media, some of these people never met me in real life.
Right.
They're just Facebook friends
or
whatever. They're like, we'll go to every show. I'm like, okay. But I don't have this conversation with them in regular life.
Exactly.
So that part was a little. And then a few people told me, we never tell people when we're going to do open mic.
Right.
We don't ever tell people we know.
Right. Because they don't want that.
Oh, that's fascinating. Because the first thing I do is when I look out, you don't really see everyone in the audience. Right. I saw the first row, so I see it.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's not a very large.
It's very close.
It's not a very large.
I was thinking if there was extra space, I would just put my fans all on the first row, so that they were all aiming to me, and then no one could sit in the first row, and then I wouldn't be able to see anybody at all. And then I could say all my best fans are in the first row, and there would be all these fans blowing air at me. But that part of it is a little unnerving. The first show that I did, I don't know if I knew anyone in the first row. That was the thing. When you get up there and you just start talking, you don't see much because there's lights, and you just start. But when he said to me, "Can you cut your 7 minutes down to 3?" I was like, "Did I go 7 minutes? Oh, no, I'm probably going to be longer." You know what I mean? Because now that you just said that, I'm a little spiteful. So, but I tried to, I don't know if I actually did, but I tried to cut it down. And I could stand there all night, but I But that's not stand-up comedy, he said. That's just like, that's probably what podcasting is. Just rambling on, about stuff. But I'm much better at this than that. So now I have a new respect for stand-up comedy, especially when they do the same show every single night for, 300 nights a year. But I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be bored with my own show. So I get that.
Yep. Okay. So I think that's all we have today in the Real Estate Finder podcast. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to reach out to us with your questions, Matt at realestatefinder.com. If you'd like to buy or sell real estate, reach out to Staci.
At realestatefinder.com with an I.
Staci. And then I think I offline remind you, there was someone I wanted to talk to you about that needed something in nohoaboca.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. And check out our other podcast, Matthew Mania Podcast. And check us out on realestatefinder.com. Thanks for joining us.
Future looks bright and the storms pass by. The sky's dark blue and it's almost that time. Light shows, cameras flash when I pass. Living in the moment, forget about the past. They save the best for last.